Hello guys, welcome back to our online classes. Let's start. Today we're gonna have a short review because we have an exam coming up. Okay, so I want you to we're going to go over the topics and also please study by yourselves. Okay, so we're gonna start with add on in. These are prepositions of time. We're gonna use them to talk about moments or time, right? Now, whenever we are using in, we're going to use it for months, seasons, years, or centuries, like in April, in the 80s, in the 20th century. This is the most general one. When we're being very specific, we're going to use on. We're going to talk about days. On Sunday, on Friday, on the 1st of June, yeah? And with at, we're going to use it to talk about time, like very specific moments of the day, okay? At 9, at noon, at midnight, yeah? Now, you have to be careful because there's always some exceptions, and in this case, some of the most common exceptions are in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, at the weekend, or on weekends, okay? So, let's continue. We also talk about simple present with yes or no questions. When we make questions in simple present, we're going to use the auxiliary do. Do you get up early? As always in English, with questions, we will change the order of the subject and the auxiliary. Do, subject, and complement. Do you get up early? In this case, the answer is yes, I do, or no, I don't, since we're starting with the auxiliary do. Okay? Now, another topic that we also touched was the adverbs of frequency. In English, we can use adverbs to explain how often or frequent something happens. I always connect on time. In this sentence, we can see that always explains the frequency of the action. The correct structure is adverb and verb. I always connect on time. But when we are using the verb to be, the structure changes. I'm going to say I am never late. So if you're using the verb to be, you're going to use the adverb after. If you're using a verb, you're going to use it before. Yeah. And here we have this picture of how to use some of the most common adverbs of frequency. Always we're going to use it with 100%, then goes down to usually, often, sometimes it's like a 50%, rarely, almost nothing, and never zero. You never do this, right? In English, we don't use double negatives, so you have to be careful. We are never going to use negative in affirmative sentences. So I don't say, I don't never are late. Yes? It's, I am never late. So I want you to complete on this exercise that I found there. Take a screenshot and we're gonna check the answers for this during class. Ready? Let's continue. So, talking about simple present, let's go over the basic things of simple present, right? We use simple present for things that are generally true or habitually happen. The contractions for these are don't, do not, doesn't, does not, right? To make negatives, we're going to use don't or doesn't plus the verb in base form. He doesn't work, no, he doesn't works, right? Yeah. Now, there is a specific rule for the simple present, and is that when we are using he, she, it, we're going to add the s to the verb. I work, I play, I live, right? He works, he plays, he lives. I watch, I finish, I go, I do. She watches, she finishes, she goes, she does. I study, she studies. Be careful with some he, she, it forms, like for example, have. The form is has, not haps. Okay? And like we have been working on simple present questions, like I was explaining before, we're going to start with the auxiliary. Like, do I work? Yes, I do. No, I don't. We use do or does with he, she, it to make questions. Do and does. Do and does can be the auxiliary verb to make simple present questions. Do you speak English? Does she live here? Or a normal verb. I do my homework in the evening. He does housework every day. The word order for simple present is auxiliary, subject, and the base form. Now, we have to be careful because we can also use simple present questions with WH words. who does your homework. The structure is WH word, who, do or does, thus, subject, your homework. So we're talking about a he or she. That's why we're using do, right? And when we're working on these that are information questions, right, like the one that I just showed you, we're going to use it to talk about, ask about real habits or routines, right? Where do you work? So we can see in the question is asking about our routine, your work. The structure, like I told you before, is WH word, the auxiliary do, the subject, and the verb. When making questions with simple present, we're going to follow the verb rules as we do in normal verbs. When we say, for example, I, you, we, they, we will use the auxiliary do in base form. Do they work here? But when we use he, she, we're going to use the auxiliary does and s. Okay? Does he work here? Be careful. In simple present, we use do or does as an auxiliary, but do and does can also be a verb. We already discussed this. And here we have an example. What does he do for fun? In this case, we're using the auxiliary does, and we use the verb do, okay, in the sentence. See, we already have the auxiliary with s, does. The verb do stays in its base form. So this is a very quick review of what are some of the topics that we have worked on in class. Please study them, and if you have questions, we can always discuss them in class. Guys, thank you for watching today's video. I'll see you in class.